Pay Your People Better, April 24th, 2026. I decided, I think today will be the day that I make my eggnog. And I'll do it on camera, because why the hell not? You know? Okay. Setting you up. Make sure you don't fall over or anything. And you have at least a reasonable camera situation. So yeah, the first thing I gotta do, I'm gonna crack the 6 eggs into here. Well, actually, the first thing I gotta do is make my coffee. So let's move in real quick. It's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, by the way. So yeah, it's good that I moved the filter over to a clean bottle. Clean paper towel. That way, you know, I can kind of just like pour this without having to like lift the damn thing out all the time and make it a hairy situation each time. And just to show you what it looks like, not the best. It's pretty obvious that like most of the coffee is done being filtered out. But that's not a problem. Because what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to basically mix the two together. It's not going to be an issue. Or, I'll just let it sit there. Actually, yeah, that's what I'm going to do, because it's going to be more lazy. So I'm going to let it sit there, right? And then I'll do another batch. Well, hold on. And I think I might just dump most of it into, like, once the current one gets low, I think I'll just dump it in there. And we'll see. And then, you know, restart the whole process, because I've got, well, I thought I had. I guess I gotta buy more coffee. I thought I bought more coffee the last time I was at the store. Unless that was most of that coffee. I don't know. I'll have to look, see. Check my bags, maybe. They're all hanging and putting in the right spots. That's weird. Those are up there, largely being devoid of light. Huh. Alright, well. Whatever. Let's buy more coffee the next time I'm at the store. I still have, you know, it's like a couple weeks before before my food stamps kicks back in on the 4th. But also, I still have like $60 left, so it's not gonna be a problem. You over here. Let's get. Oh wait, the spoon was already over here. There's my little teaspoon I'm using for my coffee. Came with the house. Apartment, however you want to call it. Now I will say, the main thing that's going to happen later is not going to be the greatest video content. And that is, oops, I didn't need to run that away just yet, because I got to put in my cream. So I'm putting in heavy cream this time around, instead of just milk. Ooh, that looked good. It's all nice and swirly. Had that cool, like, almost lava effect. Because there's times where I just want to have some cream versus milk in my coffee. I usually like milk because it increases the volume, which helps to decrease the general density of the bitterness, and because of the volume, it usually cools it down faster too. Plus, milk has sugar in it because of the lactose, which I am now apparently, intolerant of. Which is funny because like lactose intolerance is actually the standard. It's the norm. Most people, once they stop being children, basically once they hit puberty, if not sooner. Once they stop being babies, effectively, and they no longer process lactose in the same way, the vast majority of humans stop that in youth. It's people like me who are the oddball. About 70%, or I'm sorry, about 30% of the people of the world, mostly white people, by the way, that are tolerant of lactose. But because white men rule the world, we made it to where it's like, okay, well, we're the exception, therefore everybody else is the actual exception, and we're the rule. So, you know, more racism and white supremacy and all that kind of crap. If you don't think cooking or basketball or whatever is political, what was it? Adam Ragusa made a really good point about it recently, because, you know, he was talking politics on his cooking channel, and he was like, talk like a citizen, not like a serf. And the citizen is the one who talks political. The serf is the one who's like, shut up and dribble. Which I think was a Megyn Kelly thing to LeBron James back in the day, where LeBron started getting political. You know, it's funny. People won't tell you to shut up and dribble if you're out there spending your money on like an orphanage, or, you know, some sort of like learning center for excellence or anything like that. But when you start talking about, when you start having, you know, an opinion about the current president, policy, etc., then they somehow, for some reason, start having problems with you. And usually, it also seems to be mostly pointed at people who are not white. Now, of course, there's still going to be people who were like, even in, you know, Adam's video talking about, oh, well, I come here to escape and, you know, to watch cooking videos and stuff. And it's like, that's a very privileged position to be able to do, to be able to escape politicization of everything. There are people in this world who don't get that privilege. They do not have the ability to escape from politicization of basically anything. I'm going to be using my blender, but at least it'll make it fast. Oh, wait, that's the wrong one for this. I'm going to use the beaters for the eggs and booze. Which, by the way, this is 24 ounces of rum, 8 ounces of dark rum, and 16 ounces of light rum. This is 16 ounces. Like, these are the equivalents of cream and milk. 16 ounces of cream, 8 ounces of milk. So there's your 1-to-1 ratio of liquids. 6 eggs, which don't seem to have any fragments in there, which is good. And 175 grams of sugar. Now, the thing that I'll have to do, and I might, well, I think I'll wait. I'll do it at the end. But, well, not at the beginning, close to the end. I'm going to beat these eggs and then start streaming in the booze after I've beaten the eggs. And the reason why you would do that is because alcohol will chemically cook eggs, aka denature. So let's spin this up a little bit. Because if you let eggs just sit there, it'll, like, I think it unfolds or folds. I can't remember which direction it is. The egg proteins. And I think they'll tighten up, they'll push water out, And then basically you just can't undo them for the most part. You don't want to dump it all in at once, because just like when you because this is essentially tempering eggs. You don't want them to become hard, you don't want them to become scrambled eggs. It's like right now, this is scrambled eggs, but I don't want it to become scrambled eggs, wherein I have like actual curds that have formed. I mean, essentially what I will be doing is creating small curds, but they'll be extremely tiny, ideally. Now you might be saying, why don't you put that in your measuring cup? The problem with this specific measuring cup is that tip. The tip goes straight out and thus does not make it easy to pour. A better tip, so let's sit that there for a moment. So it goes straight out, and so when I start pouring, it doesn't really come out here, it wants to come out everywhere. Instead, what it should have is a slight curvature down, like a little Pyrex. That actually allows for streaming liquids more efficiently and just overall better than this OXO. But it's just the one that I have, so I'm not going to do anything about it. But that's also why I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm not going to put the liquid. Plus, it's also not the right size because it only holds 2 cups, whereas the mason jar holds 32 ounces total. Okay, I think it should be good enough. So now it's just time to slowly stream in. Actually, I'm going to. Because it doesn't pour very well, I gotta make sure that I've got this thing over the eggs and not really anything else. It would be better if I had this in like a blender. That had like a hole in the top. Kind of like a Vitamix or something, that'd be better. But I don't, so you know, it is what it is. Alright, so about a third of the way there. This gets very liquidy, which is kind of ideal because, I mean, you know, you don't want it to be not liquidy. I can't really stream it in, so to speak. So I'm just kind of dropping glugs in there. Like also, if let's say I had a stand mixer, for instance, this would be great. The stand mixer would take up a lot of space. A lot of space I don't have currently, so. Oops. A little alcohol on my foot. I'm basically pouring in like a shot's worth every time at this point. At least a shot's worth, if not more. I might be thinking, man, haven't you mixed it enough already by the time you pour one in? Like, probably, but I want to make sure that I've really thoroughly mixed, because like this is easily half booze now. the eggs took up a lot of space, but they didn't take up 24 ounces. So like this egg booze mixture is more booze than eggs now. One of the issues too is I need to slow it down a little bit because it'll just start splattering everywhere. I would like to have higher walled mixing bowls for something like this. Oh, maybe it's only just now turning forward. Oh, my arm is starting to kill me though. Sucks. Like, I bought this mixer so that it's easier to use. Because it's easier to use and so that I makes, you know, not have to do nearly as much work with my shoulder, but even now, again, this is one reason why like having a stand mixer would help. A, the high wall bowl would very much help. But then B, I wouldn't have to like constantly fuck with my hand, my shoulder so much. It's like there's only so much that just like sitting here letting the mixer do the work. It needs to have a little bit of agitation, and that's what, you know, stand mixers do. They don't just sit there and blend. Like they have a little arm in there that moves it around. Yeah, this needs to definitely look more like a soup than anything else. I don't want it to look anything like a custard. And it needs to be extremely wet. And all this just so I can get drunk on eggnog. Now, of course, I could have less booze in it if I wanted. But I'm using, shit, I can't remember her name. Just to reduce the splatter and allow everything to mix. Now the booze is done. Because I'm just seeing splatter all over the fucking place. Not good. Alright. So that's done, basically. Okay, I can show you too. Most of the liquid off I can, but you see here, those little chunkies, those are the denatured, the cooked eggs that, you know, the paddles just happen to pick up. It's one of the reasons, like, if you pour something in the sink and then, let's say you turn on the hot water and that thing starts to create a film everywhere, like a milk product or an egg product or something, it's because the hot water is starting to cook those proteins. Which is why some things can be a little harder to clean off. That's why it's good to use cold water to rinse things and then hot water to actually clean. Okay, so that can go over here for the time being. Now I'm going to switch this up. Actually, before I do that, let's clean the bottom of this bad boy off, because it tends to get covered in shit. And I gotta figure out ways to make sure that doesn't happen. So now it's time to actually whip this into peaks. which is something I could not do by hand. If I tried to do this by hand, it would take so long. This one I'm just going to try to sit it here and not move my arm too much. I'll just jiggle the bowl a little bit to get things moving around. And scrape it up a little bit. I mean, it is very possible to do this by hand, but it will take literally minutes, tens possibly, depending on how, the volume and everything else. And because you're adding air to it, and the fat and the proteins are effectively clinging to each other so that those air bubbles don't pop, you're adding volume. So then you have to start cutting through that extra volume that you added in order to then add more volume to the other non-whipped cream. I mean, like it's already starting to pick up in volume, which is great. But doing this by hand would have been a nightmare, especially with my shoulder. Already starting to get there. I got soft peaks, but we're getting close. The streaks are starting to stick around, and it's harder for the cream to move around. And unlike egg whites, this cream is much more stable, I think. I can't remember. It's definitely easier because one thing about egg whites, if you try to make a meringue, for instance, you cannot let even the smallest amount of egg yolk get into your egg whites. It just won't. It won't blend. You'll never get the peaks that you want. And Adam Margusi has a great video on that too. Now we're looking at a little bit more than soft, little stiff peaks, but whatever. Okay. So there's that. One thing I forgot, I guess, in this situation is beans to scrape it in there. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour the milk and the sugar in first. And then we'll throw the cream in afterwards. So I'm going to get these blender boys back. Oh wait, hold on. Let's wipe that down. And get the blender boys back. Come on, get in there. Add the milk in here. Add it right next to the blender arms. That way, it mixes much faster. And sugar. Although I think putting the sugar in here would have been better, but whatever. It'll have a harder time dispersing or just settling. Because I'm feeling it kind of like sitting on the bottom. And I could just throw it into the cream before I actually mix it. I don't know. But that might make it harder to make the whipped cream. So what we're just going to do is, you know, trial and error. Get you out of the way here. You in here. Now, the cool thing about whipped cream is that it's hard to deflate it. Not impossible. Hard. So I'm just going to put it all in here. Let's get as much of this as I can. I mean, probably just going to lick off the rest of it off camera, but you know, just try to be somewhat simple on camera. Alright, let's get you onto those because you're about to go dunk in there anyway. Alright. Okay. Final mix. It's a little on the chunky side. That's to be expected. I mean, look how much it takes up. It just takes up so much volume. Alright, mix you in a little bit more. Alright, and now it's done. Okay, now two over here. Now for the hard part. Trying to get this in here without making a giant fucking mess. So, and I don't think it's all gonna fit, but it's fine. It's whatever. Alright. Actually, fuck it. I'm gonna use this as a means to decant first. Just hearing the little slappy poppies, it's kind of cool because that tells me that there's air in it. And there's definitely too much, more than this one container can handle, which is what I kind of expected. So what I can do then is just rinse out the other mason jar that has like a booze in it. Just use that as a remainder. Oh. Whoops. Whoops. Damn it. Everything is... Alright, there we go. Wait, that's right. Well, let's just try it. Smells less boozy than my last version. My last version was quite boozy. But I also didn't have any of my measuring utensils either. So I was just kind of winging it on everything. Which, needless to say, made it quite boozy. So now let's get the other funnel, the other bottle, mason jar. Throw you in here, get you nice and dry. Let me get my other towel here. What time is it? It is now 4:11. See, I was off by like an hour when it came to timing. And this is another reason why I wanted the funnel, was because of the eggnog. Because having it in this super wide mixing bowl made it a little bit more difficult to get shit out. I don't even remember exactly how I originally did it, to be honest. Rinse it off with some cold water. That way when the time comes, it'll be easier to clean. Did I already throw away the napkin? Shit, I think I did. Where did I put it? Did I? I don't know. It is a mystery. Because it's not. Oh, I'll put it up here. Alright, well. Okay, let's wipe that down. Make sure there's nothing on the outside. I think there was a little bit on the outside. Okay. Alright. Remember that establishing shot? Well, that's everything now. That is all that stuff. Cooking is interesting. Even if all you're doing is just mixing a bunch of shit together. That's basically cooking, though. That's the gist of it, really. And then now I'm just gonna get the lids and stuff for them. The thing I gotta do to make sure is like they're kind of on loose, so that they don't. I don't remember exactly the reason why they're loose, other than maybe there's potential chemical reactions that could cause it to, you know, explode or whatever. Who knows? So, oh, look, it's like a family, almost. But what I gotta definitely do now is bring out the old one, the eldest, if you will. This is the original. You can see that, you know, it's got a little bit of a crusty line up there. I kind of wish that I had. I think I'm gonna buy a couple more of these, like 2, because sometimes I just want to have a little something else other than coffee. And sometimes I've got water in one of those, and then I got to dump it out and set it off to the side so that you can't see it, so that I can like film stuff. And like right now, I would want to dump this eggnog into here. Hell, fuck it. Doesn't matter. Let's do it anyway. Really, all I gotta do is just stir it up a bit. Actually, let's get a chopstick. Chopsticks are great for stirring. Even just one chopstick can be good for stirring. These are my kitchen chopsticks that I mostly use when like making stuff. A lot of times it's, you know, like I said, I put water in this bad boy, so I'll put like some water in here and then I'll dump in some fiber, some mycelium husk, and then I'll use a chopstick to mix it up. I've used it to scramble some eggs. Works really well that way. Definitely gonna have to have a lactose pill after this concoction happens. This will be a very Irish drink because it's eggnog and coffee. Supposedly Irish anyway. I got a lot of dishes I gotta clean up, but you know, it's whatever. I've gotten better at the pre-cleanup stages of cooking when I'm cooking and stuff. So like, yeah, see, that kind of tastes like a coffee liqueur now. That works really well. Again, though, a lot of booze in that original one. Very booze forward. We're gonna see about this next one. They're just gonna go sit in the back of the fridge for like 2 days, then I'll tighten them up. I guess just to prevent, you know, any kind of off-gassing, whatever, explosions, etc. Because mason jars are tight. Like, there's a reason they're used the way that they're used, because they create an incredibly sick fucking seal. And like, you can can stuff and literally put it away for months or years if you do it right. When you are using mason jars, and they're constructed the way that they are, with the glass and everything the way they are, so that they are shelf stable for a long time. Because if you fuck up canning, you end up potentially introducing botulism toxin. And the person's name that I was going to look up, I gotta load it up because I gotta turn the computer on, and I don't want to forget her name. I'll even title the episode with her name because it's important. Once my computer turns on, I mean, it's turning on, but you know, it's loading. And then now we switch over to the eggnog tab. And Dr. Rebecca Lancefield. Dr. Rebecca Lancefield. She was a microbiologist. And this is her recipe. I've cut it in half, by the way. I'm not using a dozen eggs or 48 ounces of rum. I'm using, and this is still a lot. Like, if you'll notice, I didn't want to go any further up here because I want, like, some breathing room. But, like, you know, that's quite a bit of booze in all this eggnog. So, yeah, it's a lot. Her recipe is a lot. And what I'll do also is I'll post the recipe that I currently use, in addition to other information that's associated with it. The Adam Ragusa video about it, because he talks to one of her students before she passed, and you know, he was talking about how you know, they would make it right before Thanksgiving, and then they'd set it aside in the lab fridge until the Christmas party. And apparently, you know, they had tasted it, I think, after the fact, just to kind of make sure everything, like, tasted right. And they may have had just a little sip. And what I've been drinking them, whenever I do drink them, I will fill up one of these little guys. They're like 6 ounces, like, straight up to the brim. So, like, that's enough. Because I like eggnog. Now, the booze isn't intended for me to get drunk, specifically. It's partly as an antibacterial agent, and that's kind of the thing that they were sort of testing. There hasn't been any, like, at least I think according to Ragusa, there hasn't been any, like, full-on, like, real studies around this, but every anecdote says, you know, it just tastes better after like 6 weeks. And mine still tasted better after 6 weeks too. Like, I had some literally like 2 days ago, and it was better. It's still very booze forward, but because I'm sensitive to that kind of stuff. You know, like, whenever I get a really nice bartender who's very nice to me, they will then, like, maybe give me, you know, a Mai Tai, or because I like rum drinks, some Bahama Mama or something. And I can tell that it's a little too booze heavy. And I'm just like, why? Why are you gonna be nice to me? I just wanted this to taste normal. And I don't want to be an ass, because I don't really know how to ask. like, as much of a customer service person as I've been most of my life, I still have a hard time asking for certain things because I feel like I'm saying it wrong when I'm talking to the person. So, you know, it's still an uphill battle for me in that regard. Also, I only have 2 more. I think I may have mentioned it yesterday as well, because I think I recorded it after coming back from the PT. I don't remember. Fuck. But coming back from the physical therapist office, they told me, hey, you'll have 2 more, so it's next week. So my busy week is next week, and then that's basically it. So another reason to get the hula hoop, and I'm definitely mentioned that yesterday. I also more or less am finished playing WoW. There's only one thing that I want to do, and I basically have to wait until next week because they were having. So I mentioned it as well, where I have one character who went around and discovered everything and got the cartographer title. Yesterday, I got my other character. He was going to be. I was working towards the Seeker of Knowledge title, which is 2,800 quests, which can be any quest. It can be like, hey, can you go talk to that guy? That's a quest. Sometimes it's you pick up an item and it's like, hey, go talk to this guy, and that quest is done. Sometimes, and these were the most annoying, is hey, help this one guy go from this place to this place, and then you're done. Problem is oftentimes, they don't run fast. Like, some of them won't even run as fast as you run, and you run slow. Some of them will run fast enough for that, so it's not a problem. But then they won't run as fast as, let's say, your mount, which is unfortunate, but whatever. And so I got him to do that, and the very last quest I had was to go get Tuga, the turtle, and bring him to his wife, Torta, the turtle, but also Tortuga. It's just like, it felt like a nice little moment, my final quest before I put that character to rest. Because like one of the quest chain that I was doing was actually more steps than I had thought. And it was just to get a couple of pieces of armor, but also to do the quest. And, I finished that and I was like, oh, okay, now I can actually do this one quest and get it over with. And I had to wait because I saw Tuga out in the desert fighting a crocolisk, or a basilisk actually. And he was fine, he had like half his health. But when I killed the basilisk, he just disappeared. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I had to wait. And then I saw him again, and I was like, oh, okay, let's get that quest. I was hoping it was going to work in the first place. Got the quest, delivered him to his wife. Torta is essentially the person who develops, essentially created the turtle WoW. So I felt that it was like poignant in that regard. And then I was like, okay, where am I going to park this fucker? It's like, I want him to be on the beach. Well, there's a beach party right there. And, it's not exactly a place, it's not exactly where I was thinking of, but it's not in any way in opposition. And then I was like, I know this goblin sells this drink that turns you into an ooze. I should do that just for fun. And then I realized it's a permanent buff, I guess until you log back in or something, I'm not sure. Or until you get attacked, I think is usually how it works. And I was like, screw it. I'll turn myself into a slime, and now he's resting. And then I took a screenshot, posted on my guild thing, and I was like, and then I had to make something up, and I was like, how is this going to work? And then I just started typing, and then a very small story of the drink was awkward or abnormal or whatever, but he felt normal. I don't know. I just came up with that shit on the fly. So he's done. I am virtually done at this point, except for the reset. My hunter, who is the cartographer, she's currently parked in Booty Bay on top of a building overlooking the bay, which is essentially where I was thinking of putting him, but I haven't put her anywhere. And I was like, okay, what I can do is I can, and she shrunk because of what's known as the Noggin Fogger Elixir, and you drink it and it gives you like one of like 3 different possible buffs. One turns you into skeleton and it gives you underwater breathing, which is kind of cool, but you can't like get on your mount, you can't fly, which really sucks. So I turn that, I basically click it off, especially if I know I'm going to be traveling. One gives you feather fall, so it makes it easier for you to fall, and it lasts like 2 minutes, which is actually pretty lengthy for feather fall. And it really slows you down pretty significantly because there's no levitation in this game, like unlike EverQuest, where like some classes got levitation at like 12, and then like necromancers in EverQuest got what is known as DMF, Dead Man Floating, at level 44, and then later on in another expansion there was a group version that would drop off of a boss, and that would give your whole party the buff, and that buff lasts like 72 minutes. It lasts forever. The levitation spell in EverQuest lasts like 10-ish. It depends on the level of the caster, and then it has like a maximum of like 15 minutes or something like that. But it's very helpful because the same classes that get the levitation spell also get the Spirit of Wolf spell, which makes you run faster, and depending on your level, depending on the caster level, will determine how fast you run. So if you have a high level person cast Spirit of Wolf and levitation on you, can fly across the world and not worry about any falling damage. It's great. World of Warcraft has no levitation spell. It has feather fall, but it's like self only basically, that like mages get. I don't think you can cast it on anybody else. I think it's a self only thing. And so falling damage is very, like most of my deaths in World of Warcraft were falling deaths, I'm pretty sure. There were so many of them. It's hard to count. But yeah, so I used the Noggin Fogger Elixir on my hunter. She's parked in Booty Bay at the moment. She's tiny, so she can get on her epic mount. She only has one. She has the turtle mount. And so she just looks adorable running around everywhere at epic speed, but tiny. But when the reset happens next week, then I'm going to check to see, I'm going to go back to the Dwarven Lands, to the newbie area where there's a bug when it comes to the discovery of one specific place, to see if I can get that and I can like finish it off. If not, then whatever. And then she'll go back to Booty Bay and be done with it. So, alright. I have some whipped cream to consume in an impolite way. So I'm going to let you go. Have fun.